We're not even invited to this thing, are we?
Nope.
Mom's coming.
Benjamin, have you two been smoking dope?
No.
Why can't you keep him under control?
Your son's an anarchist, Mrs. Gibbon.
For generations, the Gibbon and Rathcard families had a blood feud. It was never about business.
Your son is trespassing.
It was personal.
Mary Rathcard.
Ben Gibbon.
Do I need to explain to you why this is unacceptable? End it.
It was an instant scandal.
You take care of my problem, I'll grant you my daughter's hand.
Take care of him.
Looks like, man, you're gonna dance. How do you wanna die? I wanna die in a gunfight.
The choices they had made had led them to this very moment.
The fallout? It's not gonna be pretty.
Let's get out of here. I always thought of my life like I was living my movie.
I'm gonna be the star of your movie.
This presents me with an issue.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, right, Dad?
Enough.
We're gonna piss a lot of people off.
Do you have a death wish? Is something that excites you?
Dude, it's pretty much conform or die. Honestly, I'd rather die.
Put the fear of God in it.
They'll try to stop us.
I'll protect you.
For how long?
For as long as you want me to.
How about forever?
Welcome back to the Rock and Roll Ghost podcast. This week we have filmmaker Collin Schiffli, director of Animals, All Creatures Here Below, and his newest film, Die in a Gunfight, which is available on demand pretty much anywhere you want to get it. I know I saw it on Vudu for $10, so buy the damn thing. What the hell? Screw renting it. You might as well, for the price you're paying to rent it, you might as well buy it. So just own it. It's a fun film. So we're going to talk about Gunfight and his other work and anything else that he may be working on and whatever the hell else may come up, because usually these things go off the rails into different areas. So if you don't mind that, then we're going to be good. So how you doing today, Collin?
I am doing well, thank you, and I'm happy to be here doing exactly that, going off the rails. I'm happy to do that.
I'm glad too. I love the screenshot behind you of Travis Fimmel.
Thank you.
Is that how you pronounce his last name?
I think so. Yeah, Travis Fimmel. That's what we all say. He's never corrected us.
Yeah. Okay, well then, if he never corrected you, then you're fine. Let's start there. Number one, I did like the film a hell of a lot.
Thank you.
It's in the end, after seeing your other two films, it's very different from the kind of more realistic, I guess, French reality sort of thing that your other films were. This is a little bit more fanciful and
sure.
Almost romantic fairy tale sort of thing, with a twist of Romeo and Juliet a bit.
Yeah.
Travis, who I don't really know for much, but I know his face. It's like one of those things. I haven't seen Vikings. I haven't seen Warcraft.
Right. Same.
Travis Fimmel, and this is the first time I saw him, and I just loved how bonkers he was in this.
Good. Yeah.
How was working with him? If I can start off with that.
Absolutely. He's fantastic, and that's why I wanted him up here. I've been trying to fluctuate the background image here, and I thought it was a turn for him because he was great to work with. I knew from, what was on the page, I knew Travis, his character, Wayne, would be my favorite character in the film. One of those scene-stealing characters. And Travis is the type of guy that you want to be in that role because, for me as a director, just being able to, one, ahead of time kind of prep with him about who this character is and why he does what he does. But But then allowing him to throw all that out the window when we start filming and just go nuts. And he's that one of those actors that kind of wants to be fearless and try things. And he'll be the first to be like, oh, that sucked, forget it. Let me go back to that. But he wants to try things. And that's what, as a director that likes to capture lightning in a bottle, he's the guy you want around.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you end up casting him? I mean, what was that process like?
Well, casting is my least favorite part of filmmaking. It's amazing because it gets rewarding once you finally grab someone. But for an ensemble piece like this, it was so hard to have all the right pieces at the right time when you can't just be like, here's $10 million for your lead. It's like, it's got to be everyone's schedule's got to fit. And, if they're half doing Marvel movies, half doing television, you kind of have to like grab them when you can.
Yeah.
And Travis, I think, was one of the final pieces of the puzzle. We had Diego and Alexandra, but we needed that, like, he's such a pinnacle character. And I think we went to like everyone for that role. And it was always like either scheduling or, something that they just were like, couldn't understand this character. And again, that's why you need an actor who's willing to take strange risks and stuff.
Yeah.
But he was, the last one we went to, and I think he responded to the material in a way that, is what we needed. Someone who, he likes to play more morally ambiguous characters that usually kind of lean towards trying to do make the right decision. So I think it just spoke to him, and our team, having other people cast already, I think kind of won him over, knowing that we were ready to go, and we're like, hey, we just need you for this week, whatever, let's bring you in and we'll do it. And then he brought everything else to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. He's, he looks like somebody else I know, a musician friend of mine, which is weird, but but one's from California, one's from Australia, but probably not that far apart.
Yeah, totally. Personality and
coastal.
Yeah. That vibe they give.
Yeah, right away he was just like, I mean, I really, he comes in early enough where he makes an impression, fast.
Yeah.
And number, the main thing is that the movie itself makes an impression pretty early on. There's a lot of interesting animation. The narration's by Billy Crudup, who I'll get into him in a second. That whole thing. It's really, it's not. The way the advertising kind of leads you to think, the stuff I've been getting on Facebook ever since I started talking about this film, because I now get inundated with it on social media, which is like, well, I'm already sold, so I don't know why you're selling it back.
Yeah, I'm not your audience.
But I got the impression it was going to be this Tarantino-esque, full on, violence every 2 seconds thing, and it's not really that. It's about characters trying to figure out, what they're doing and how to get to a place where they're satisfied in their lives mostly. And that may sound strange to somebody seeing the preview. But there is a certain healthy amount of violence in it, that's for sure. I mean, there's a whole exchange with Travis and a couple of goons that sets his character off on a different journey.
Yep.
Which is really interesting. What the idea, most of that was from the script itself, or did you kind of take a script and kind of like say, hey, let's try this, let's try that? How did you get the material, and how did it shape itself to the filming script, I suppose?
Sure. So I got the material when I had finished, Animals was done behind me here, my first film, and kind of was getting the recognition I needed to start getting other scripts. And I got the attention of the writers of the Ant-Man films, Andrew Barrer and Gabe Ferrari, and we didn't know each other, but they liked my work, and I was kind of doing my second film, which is also grounded and gritty and, kind of heavy. You got to get lost in that kind of guerrilla filmmaking style. So this one, to me, when I read it, it was actually kind of on the page that way. It was very like self-aware, tongue-in-cheek, witty, and so self-referential, like very meta in filmmaking terms. Like it had this sense of kind of that filmmaking 101. I don't like to say cliches, but on purpose, like nodding to what was referencing. And that's one thing we can get into when it comes to how people are reviewing the film. It's kind of funny how much of that people are missing, that we're obviously aware of all the Tarantino-esque, the Guy Ritchie, the 1996 Romeo and Juliet, all these different styles that, a lot of them are from the 90s, but they also go all the way back to French New Wave stuff. All of that was on the page. And I think that's why, for me, having come off two heavy, naturalistic, gritty movies, I was like, well, this still deals with certain themes, similar themes that I love. But maybe this is a way to do it to step outside my own instincts and kind of play around just to have fun, because I just done such heavy movies. I wanted to do something kind of flashy and for younger audiences too. Yeah. So it was there, but I just wanted to take it and run with it. But at the same time, the extent of that all still was kind of boxed into how far can we go this way or this way, depending on budget. And, I knew I wanted it to be stylized, but how far we could push that was, through the years, kind of kept going back and forth. But anyways, so it was there. I just wanted to take it and run with it.
So you got this script pretty early on, a number of years ago then, correct? Yeah,
like it had been around 5 years before I even was directing. Okay. But then I got involved in like 2015 maybe. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of those movies that, trying to get all the pieces together and get people to understand what it was. It was just such a challenge. We'd always have everything, then it'd fall apart, and then we'd have it all, and it'd fall apart. So I did my second movie, All Creatures Here Below, while I was prepping and, in development for Gunfight. So it's kind of weird. I was able to go make a whole nother movie in between. But
it definitely seems like that's as strange as it seems to most people. That is fairly normal. I mean, even Scorsese works on films while he's working on films. He's all constantly. Everybody is always trying to move the ball forward on something, and sometimes it just never happens. And it's weird how somebody could I remember as a kid reading about cool ideas people were attached to. Yeah, and. They were close. And there are some instances like the Superman movie that Tim Burton almost did. Yeah. He had a cast. Yeah. He had screen tests. He had production going. And it's still, even with Tim Burton and Nicolas Cage, who was extremely hot at the time, it fell through. Right. It's like insane. Hollywood is nuts.
It is. Exactly. That's actually probably the best kind of modern example, because it's like how this is Tim Burton and Nick Cage, all of them at the height of their career, the pinnacle of where they're at, and the biggest money behind it, and they were doing tests, and it's like, well, why is there always that makes it all fall apart? Right. Very weird. It's
and then there's another example is what's his name? The guy that did the Mad Max movies, George Miller. George Miller had a Justice League movie. Yeah. All figured out.
Yeah, I know. It blows my mind how.
So if it happens on these big budget things where people are like, this is going to make money. Yep. One way or another, it's going to make a ton of money. It's going to happen a lot in independent film.
100%. And I think that's something that, I'm glad you brought that up, because, everyone either getting into film or people who just don't understand and are like, oh, cool. Oh, Hollywood's out of ideas. Oh, it's like, no, there are so many factors. You have no idea. It's a weird, tricky. It's like everyone says it's a miracle to get a movie made, let alone make a good movie. So it's and it's true.
And it's why, it's sometimes why you see people make bad films, because it's like, I need to work.
That's the other thing. It's like, that's exactly why, Gunfight, I love the script, and even with it falling apart constantly, I could have easily just been like, well, I'm just walking away from this because it'll never get done. But it's like, well, why do that? Why not just keep it on the back burner continuously, constantly kind of checking in on it, doing what you need, trying to make what needs to happen until it finally does happen. But that's why at the very last minute, when the real troubles come in on a movie where like the budget's not there, or they cut the budget, or you lose your actors, or whatever it is, there's that moment of like, well, do I just continue? Because if I don't continue, I have nothing and I won't get paid, and then I'm starting over at zero. It's like, or do I just make the best out of the worst situation, even if it's not going to be anywhere?
And you're not saying that this is the case with Gunfight. You're just saying that that's a thing that happens.
Yes, it happens pretty. I mean, honestly, it happened on Gunfight, but like, luckily, Gunfight is such a playful, kind of colorful, whimsical world that it was like you could kind of make it work. But adapt, I guess. But like, I think every movie, that's just how it is, and it doesn't matter if you're Spielberg or whoever. I feel like that's why you always have these stories where like so and so is attached and it fell apart.
And then he's like, I mean, I used to. I'm old enough where when I went to the movie theater, they had these little cards with ads on them and stuff. So you would see what was coming soon. You'd read these things like, and these were movies that were actually made. Movies coming out with these kids. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. This is before really the internet took hold. And you're like, okay, that sounds interesting. Like, or you see the trailer in a theater, but you never see the movie come out.
Right.
If you do, you see it 5 years later come out on video.
Yes.
It's like, even when you make a damn movie, it's like sometimes it's still...
It might not go anywhere. Like you get you make the miracle happen where you get the movie made, and then there's a whole nother life of the movie battle where you're like, who's going to put this out there? Is this is it just going to be me on YouTube putting it on there, hoping someone watches it?
And that happens not just in independent film too.
Yeah.
Look at all the movies Miramax buried.
They just get shelved, and you're like, they get lost in time.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, in speaking of Miramax, I just read this interesting thing where Rosie O'Donnell was talking about working with M. Night Shyamalan on his second film, and Weinstein bought it for Miramax and was going to cut the thing. And Shyamalan was in Weinstein's office. Rosie O'Donnell called in, and basically Weinstein started screaming at her.
Wow.
But she was like, you don't tell Van Gogh to paint with a different shade of blue. Leave the film to him.
Right.
She was like, I'll never talk to you again after the way he, just another example of what an asshole Weinstein was.
Of course, right.
But it's like then his third film is, Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
It's like, you kind of screwed yourself there, dude.
It's totally, absolutely.
But it's fast. Filmmaking never ceases to amaze me. I'm equally fascinated by filmmaking as I am in people that open restaurants. And if you've ever known anyone that opened or worked at as a manager or whatever at a restaurant, and you realize all the insanity that goes on behind the scenes with money and stuff like that. I mean, I had a guy tell me one time that basically as soon as they opened, the owner or the guy behind it went on this insane cocaine stripper rager for months on end. And then like 6 months later, the restaurant, after taking 3 years to open, 6 months later was already out the door.
Yeah, crashed. Yep. I'm not surprised. I know. I mean, I've read similar things. And that's why it's interesting as filmmakers or anyone trying to do anything that seems impossible. It's fun to read about those, not fun necessarily, but interesting to read those types of stories and see, because it's all similar and no matter what you're putting it, applying it to, the chaos and the craziness and the personalities and the situations are all there. And it's bizarre. It's really, really.
Yeah, because you really have to be careful who you kind of get in bed with
absolutely
these sorts of things. And sometimes 100%. You make the decision because you want to see the film.
Yeah, you're desperate. Or right. You're willing to kind of take everyone, you believe everyone, there's a lot of empty promises made. You kind of take everyone for face value, but everyone's kind of also got their guard up, and it's a process, and you're going to be living and stuck with these people and with this movie, whatever however it goes down for a long time. So it's a delicate thing. But then at the same time, like we were saying earlier, it's like, but I also need to work. Like if I'm in this position, it's like take the job or make the decision based on that in some regard, you know. So it's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, with Gunfight, did the person that basically had optioned it, or I guess option would be the right word, stay on, like the producer, whoever decided, hey, I want to make this film, did that person stay on through the whole thing?
Mostly, yeah. I think it originally, so it was basically the Mark Gordon company that at the time, I think it was E1, or I don't know, because companies are always changing over the years. But he still was kind of our, I guess, godfather producer that wasn't really involved, but he was involved. You know, he gave thumbs up and he kind of was looking from a distance. But I think him and his company were the ones that optioned the script way back when. And I think, and then it's kind of stayed under that umbrella. Through to now, but
it was an example where you're bouncing from person to person, optioning it, and then someone else optioning it.
Exactly, it wasn't that, and that was more my first two films where you're like trying to just get the producers or however it's going to be funded, whether it's a production company or whether it's some independent financer. Whereas this was kind of in the umbrella of that, so that's why it's weird. It's kind of a foot in two different worlds, and I think that's why the movie was such a challenge at the end of the day, because had we had the budget that we originally wanted, which was upwards of like 8 to 10 million, even 10 to 12 million, which we came nowhere close to, that, you know, to me is how, like, having the umbrella of a bigger company that had already optioned it, it's almost like we needed that, because we played by all the rules. Even though we're kind of shooting a really low budget indie movie, we're still playing by the rules of a bigger kind of overseer, and that to me is what was a problem, because you're like, you can't kind of be both. You can, but like that's where things get weird. Whereas on my other two movies, it was full guerrilla indie. We had no supervision and kind of we were winging it, and I think that's why it all feels a little more cohesive in that way. But it's a challenge trying to navigate that stuff, but it was good at the same time getting actors, having it optioned under that umbrella of the Mark Gordon company, because it made it so much easier to get those meetings and those conversations going.
Right.
It was like real.
Well, in the case of this film, no, I gotta say, you know, I obviously things happen, and you know, your budget, you know, and maybe your schedule wasn't what you were hoping it was going to be, but I think in the end, it's on the screen.
Awesome.
You know, I think you definitely took the limitations or the setbacks that you did have, and you made it work, which is, you know, it's a very cool film. It's very stylized. It's a very sexy looking film, honestly. So credit to your cinematographer.
Thank you
as well for that, because that's it's just a very cool film in general. And there were just, you know, besides Travis, I was especially impressed with Wade Allain-Marcus.
Yes.
What I had seen on Insecure.
Oh yeah.
He played you know, that's what I had known him from before, but he plays a completely different character. He's a lot cooler. He's a lot more confident, because in that character, he's kind of subservient, you know, to his wife.
Sure.
Show. But here he's like this cool dude that is like, you know, is the main character played by Diego, his ride or die buddy.
Yep.
Which the hilarious animation showing how they became friends.
Yes.
is a lot of fun too.
Good. I'm glad you like that. Cause I love that. I mean, it's funny, cause I would almost argue that, you know, I love everyone. Everyone did an amazing job, and everyone, you know, was amazing to work with. But I think just as my own viewer, you know, as a viewer myself, I would say that the Wayne and McCool character are just something about them pops, and especially like Wade did such a good job being exactly that character, that ride or die, that, you know, there could be a bunch of spin-off comic books or movies about them in their weird adventures. I kind of always wanted them to be like the Chewbacca to you know, to Han Solo in a way. Or like, you know, we pitched him as this kind of, or I saw him as like the Jim Morrison kind of, or like a, you know, those dressed like all those crazy people that we it's almost like he's a figment of Diego, Ben's imagination.
Right.
Like the collection.
Like his alternative personality almost. Yeah.
100%. That's
I love the brunch scene where like his Diego's character's mother is trying to implore Wade's character to talk some reason into him. He was like, meanwhile, he's also sort of hitting on his mother.
That's hilarious. We kept joking about that on the side as we're filming, all the little subtleties there. That kind of just naturally came about, and with the chemistry of everyone and the playfulness of all of us trying things and wanting to make these characters kind of wacky. But yeah, Wade, I love that you mentioned that, because Wade especially, like, he's just he blew my mind in terms of just how he brought ideas and how he brought those nuances to the character, but also how he, like, I almost learned so much from him because of he was so good with, like, so when when you're directing a scene and you're trying to block it, and it's not always, so many people just think it's the camera, where the camera placement is and whatnot, but it's such a dance between, like, the actors and the camera. And Wade, I swear, is the most professional, like, skilled at understanding where he is in the frame and at what moment, and doing that dance, that I was, like, taking notes on the side of, like, how did he know to shift like that, and it was incredible. So I think that just lends to the character and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, it's the interesting thing I was just thinking about too is that, much like with Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, which, there's a great deal of Romeo and Juliet kind of in Die in a Gunfight. It's impossible to not say that there's a correlation in some ways.
Sure.
But just like in that film, as good as Diego and Alexandra are in the film, and they are very good. I'd seen Alexandra in a couple of things before. I haven't seen Diego in anything, but they're both very attractive people, and they do very good in their roles. But just like in Romeo and Juliet, it's not DiCaprio and what's her name?
Oh, Claire Danes.
I remember it's Harold Perrineau.
Yeah.
All the supporting cast.
Yep.
I remember more, and that's kind of like a case here. And it's no disrespect to Diego or Alexandra.
Sure.
Just like there's no it's DiCaprio and Claire Danes. There's no way to disrespect them.
Absolutely.
There's the juicier roles are in the supporting cast.
Yep.
And so I just kind of wanted to say that just because I'm working out my own stuff in my own head.
I love it. Absolutely.
Go off the rails.
Totally. I love it.
The funniest thing I thought in the film was the fact that Diego's family's last name is Gibbon, and then there's that insane, not real moment,
right?
Where him and his dad basically become howler monkeys. Essentially, they put full on Gibbon on their their brunch dining room table.
Yep.
Where did that come from?
I love that you like that scene because and just that connection in general, because so many people miss, they're watching their name's Gibbon. There's a part earlier where they're sitting there watching, or on the background there's the Animal Planet style shows on. All that was in the script. It was just kind of the quirkiness that comes from Andrew and Gabe writing. And it's funny, like, if we had time and full budget, there was originally this whole thing where that escalated to them, like, jumping over a balcony and swinging on a chandelier and all this metaphor for the.
I think it encapsulated. I think it worked.
Cool. Good.
I would hope it figures. More people figure it out. Some people, you can hit them over the head all you want.
It'll just always go over their head. But yeah, that was like one of the fun. That's like the charm that was in the script of the weirdness of these really kind of, because again, like Ben, the whole point is that he's looking at his life like it's a movie, and we always have those moments where you're like, you could just see yourself picking up a bottle and breaking it, and stuff that they do in movies or whatever it is. I keep giving the analogy of walking into a bar and you kind of picture yourself in slow motion with the music playing, and that monkey moment is totally one of those moments that Ben's. It's what would happen probably in his movie, but that challenge of challenging his dad, just like getting down to the primal instincts and confronting the dad kind of thing. just a playful, wacky craziness that I hope people are just like, whoa, where did that come from, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. One more thing with regards, and I mentioned him earlier. Where did Billy Crudup fit into this? How did you get? Yeah. This was after the film was made.
It was. So there was narration already. Like right. It was originally just narrated by Ben, the main character. It was supposed to be Diego doing it, and we were like, you know what? If one, as we were trying to piece the movie together, part of me is like, this is another thing that attracted me about the script was that I honestly don't like narration. Like I hate narration. I love just naturalistic, real, like the non-movie version. And I was like, well, that's what's so fun about this is that I can push all those movie tropes to the fullest we can. And when we were doing the narration, that's why I was like, we need the narration anyways, but we actually really needed it because, we were doing a lot. We were finishing the movie during COVID when we didn't have like a third of the movie. And it was like, great, well, we can't do what we had hoped to do. So that's where the animation came from. And that's where we were like, well, how about if this is Ben's movie, why are we not using a narrator that has that soothing, amazing, perfect narrator voice, and just short of having the true cliche of like a Morgan Freeman, Billy Crudup to me is, to all of us, is kind of that voice and it's like soothing, but it's playful and kind of, he's kind of nudging the audience, And so, it came up afterwards that we're like, we need someone like that. And he had worked with our producer, Tom, on something. And so we were able to kind of get to him quick. And again, I think because it was COVID and everyone was kind of like, I'm around, like doing nothing. I can record
right. And going into a studio by yourself is a lot safer than doing a film. Exactly.
And I think that's why people, when it came to the animation, when it came to the voiceover, it's like, we can make this work. And it was awesome. He was down to do it. And actually he pointed out the monkey scene himself when our first conversation. I remember he was like, I was trying to, it was like, how do we sell this movie? How do we get the audience on board with that tongue, earn that wink at the end of the movie? Right. And he kind of got he picked up on that monkey thing right away. That was like the first thing he said, like, I get the tongue in cheek. I get what you're doing. And he wanted to lend that kind of charm to it as well. Which I think he did.
Yeah, he was really cool. And let me just say that it's like you just pointed out, the narration, the animation, all these things kind of had to be done to finish the film in a way.
Yes.
And if I can say this, I think this is one of those instances where setbacks, problems coming up, and finding a creative way to solve them works in your favor.
Yes.
Oddly enough, it sets the film apart than it had you been able to do, exactly what you probably were trying to do. Oddly enough, and that's where, and especially when I went reversed and I went back and looked at your other films, I really appreciate like the fact that you're obviously a guy that can be creative when the chips are down.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what you need. That's what you need to be. You can't just let it all crap out. A lot of people that are talented consistently make crappy films.
Sure.
They work within their limited budget, but they don't try to push it. Way. And here you took something that might have been on the edge of like not, quite there, and you pushed it and made it, put it all the way through. So I was, because like I said, I went backwards. So I saw Gunfight first, and saw your other films, and it doesn't even seem as assured as Gunfight is. It doesn't even seem like the same guy made those two films.
Yeah.
Which is odd, and which is also cool because that means you're progressing in a certain way or you're adaptable. So that should, I would hope, help you out with whatever you end up doing next. Like I said, I would hope.
No, thank you. That's everything you're saying is, trust me, I feels good because it's, we're all trying to.
And I'll be honest. If I've talked to people in my time as interviewing, where I basically talk about the facts, how they made it, this and that. But if I'm not feeling something, I'm not going to say I'm not feeling it, but I'm not going to say bullshit praise, if I don't feel it there.
Well, good. I appreciate that.
So, unfortunately, that if you want to look back to my interviews, you may see me not saying much of anything about certain people's works.
Right. You just keep it quiet. Yeah. No, that's fair. And that's
I think it's a thing my mother said. It taught me. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say it.
That's so true, especially in our times now. It's
I'm very polite.
Why be cynical? Yeah. Why not be polite and be as complimentary as you can in all honesty? Otherwise, just no need to say anything.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about you're from Fort Wayne, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
And then you went to Columbia College, as we were discussing in an email.
Yep.
So how long were you ended up being in Chicago?
I was there 4 years. I did the 4 years of school. Okay. I loved it. Like, it was a perfect stepping stone for from coming from Indiana to LA. I feel like if I would have just gone straight to LA, I would have just exploded because it's so overwhelming and such a culture shock at first. Now it's not really, but like it's seemingly it is. And Chicago was that perfect playground to one, be surrounded by film people at film school, to know that's like, yes, this is I'm on the right path. This is what I want to do. And the film community was so cool there. But yeah, so it was only 4 years there. But what was cool is I had so many other friends doing other things from Indiana and from Chicago, all in Chicago for a few years, probably like 5 years after that. So I would always have like roots there, and I still do, but like especially those 5 years after college. And I think that's why it was so easy to go do my first film, Animals. We shot there, probably 4 or 5 years after I graduated. So I'd been out in LA for about 5 years when I did Animals, but it felt so good to go back to Chicago knowing that I knew the ropes and had the infrastructure and the friends and the people there to help us make it happen. So yeah, Chicago, I loved it. Like, it's my favorite city of all time.
Yeah. Well, I've been here my whole life. I'm looking to make a change, but
yeah, I'm sure.
I see people liking it. I especially with the time you were in, it was still pretty cool. It's gotten a little kind of
That's what people say. A lot of people say that. So I don't.
It's gotten phony.
Interesting.
And I think it's a generational thing. Like I said, I'm older too. So, but
right.
What year did you graduate from Columbia?
It was 2009, May 2009. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're still in a good period.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I was there from 2005 to 2009.
Okay. All right. So what? Was it just because of the proximity to Indiana that Columbia worked out well? Because by the time you went to Columbia, the whole in the 2000s, Columbia had expanded greatly.
Right. I think so. Like, as I was doing research of where to go to college, it was like either try to go to LA somewhere, try to get into one of these AFI or one of these places, UCLA, which I would have been happy to try. But at the same time, it's like, well, what's around here? And Columbia, like you said, I think it was like blowing up at the time, and they were making new changes in the film community. The film department was just expanding. So it just made sense to be like, I looked at a couple other schools in Indiana where, they had good kind of media tech departments and whatnot, but I knew like I needed to be around all the weird creative people, not just people who wanted to do like broadcasting or something. Like I wanted to go to like an art school type thing, or be surrounded by those types of people. So I think it just was a weird fit where it was like, it happens to be a perfect stepping stone close to home, but at the same, because it was like a 3-hour drive, and or 4-hour train ride or something, but close to home, but at the same time had all that, checked off all those boxes that I was looking for about being thrust into like an actual unique environment and not just be staying in Indiana where I would have just been surrounded by the same people and my friends. I feel like it wouldn't have challenged me like I needed to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Tell me a little bit about how you and David, I'm going to try to Dastmalchin.
That's it. You got it.
Okay. met, because his last name is not one I hear often, said. So I had to look up the pronunciation of it.
It's tricky.
But he's somebody I remember. It's weird how like somebody stands out and they don't necessarily even have any lines in something, but they stand out. Yeah. And I will never forget seeing him in The Dark Knight.
Yes.
Which is so weird. And then he has just become like a go-to person for certain big directors ever since then. You had the chance to put him in the lead role in two things. Obviously, he wrote both Animals and All Creatures Here Below, which helped. How did you meet him, and how did that turn into a working relationship?
Yeah, no, that's all great, because honestly, I met him the same way you described your experience seeing him. My senior year in Columbia was right after the summer that The Dark Knight came out. So it was like the craze of, the film students. Like, it's all we obsessed over was Heath Ledger, Dark Knight. And it's weird because that year I was up to do my like directing, thesis film, whatever, practicum film. And I needed like a weird kind of creepy, interesting looking dude that would fit in a Tim Burton world or something. And his face just stayed with me. And I kept thinking about like, what if we could get that guy? Like, maybe, they filmed Dark Knight in Chicago. A lot of it, maybe he lives here. I don't know. Let's just see. He's like a small enough role that maybe we can track him down. And somehow we tracked him down, just a bunch of us students. And we're like, he was like, we got him the script and he was like, yeah, he's like, actually, this is cool. I'll do this. We only needed him for like a day, maybe, I think a day. And so I met with him in Chicago. I remember it was like a Potbelly or something, Potbelly sandwich place on over by like Grant Park, kind of. Okay. And I remember him walking up and just being like, dude, it's the dude from Dark Knight. And at the time, he was also in a ton of Wendy's commercials. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, I don't remember that at all. It
was weirdly the same summer. So like that summer and fall, they played these Wendy's commercials all the time. And every time it was on, I was like, it's the dude from Batman that I'm obsessed with.
I'm going to have to look that up after this.
Yeah, check it out. Look up like Wendy's Threeconomics or something.
Okay.
They're on there somewhere. But
so basically you tracked him down to be the lead or a role in your student film.
It was pretty much like the second. He plays basically like this plant man growing in the ground. Okay. So it was a very Pan's Labyrinth-y student film. But it was so amazing because, one, I had to fight to use him because all the professors for some reason were like, I didn't have to fight, but they were like, who's this guy? Why are you all obsessed with him? Like, what? Batman, what? And we're like, you don't understand. This dude like popped so much in that scene he did that I knew, like, when I watched that movie that I was like, I swear I sat there and I was like, I'm going to work with this guy. He's going to be famous. Yeah. And so that's kind of how it all worked. And we just, when we finished, I mean, the short film was fun, whatever, learning experience and really a challenge. But it was amazing because, that started our relationship of like, he was like, I'm moving to LA too. And I was planning on moving to LA after I graduated. And he was like, I'll call you when I get there. And I remember being like, sure. I was like, yeah, right. Call me. But he did, like, right away. And we went and saw a movie. And like, from then on, just started, we just stayed friends and kept working together on things, even just dumb little YouTube type videos, short films and stuff, until we were ready to tackle the feature.
So how did you guys decide to go ahead and obviously he's a writer. I mean, he's probably got a bunch of stuff he's been working on that he still wants to have, produced, obviously, because he wrote 2 films. So directed both of them. So how did you guys jump from knowing each other to saying, hey, I'd really like you to, or is that how it went to direct, this film?
Yeah, it was interesting. Like I said, we were just goofing around, and he was single at the time. He's married, but I think he was kind of meeting, his girlfriend at the time. And we all just clicked really well, and we're so supportive of each other. And she would help with stuff, and we'd make these short films. And I swear it was a movie. He was in a movie that he was fine in it, but I went with him. We went and saw it, and we're all pumped. And I, for some reason, it was the first time I ever just flat out was like, I pretty much just said like, I don't know, you were fine in it, but you do all your tricks. Like I saw all your actor tricks, and it kind of bothered me. Like I felt like I could see through your character to you trying to do your
truth
and
in
I
LA.
I didn't mean it in any like mean way. But
But truth
yeah,
in LA could be harsh.
Yes, exactly. And it kind of just came out at dinner and after we had watched the movie. And I swear Dave was like, I think I found, I found the dude who needs to direct Animals. Because he'll be honest and real about it. And it's a tough, it's based on elements of his real life that he lived. And so like we were willing to go personal and also roll up our sleeves. And, at the time I had just finished doing a bunch of coordinating on a bunch of indie films. And I'm horrible at coordinating. I'm horrible at like the business side of it. But I knew, and I that year of coordinating and PAing and all that stuff forced me to learn how to literally make a movie, like literally create the receipt books and all the files and set up the bank account. And so I think me talking to Dave and getting that personal with him mixed with him seeing that I was also doing I could handle the preliminary paperwork stuff.
Right.
Like, I think we're ready to do this. We just have to track down someone who wants to give us money and go do it.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
That's cool. And then obviously you guys worked well together that you did the next one.
Yeah.
Came up with. What was the difference between working with him from Animals to All Creatures Here Below? Was there anything different about your working relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was different because on Animals, the challenge on Animals was that even though we knew each other really well and we knew we were in it, we still, it was his baby. He was very delicate and there was a lot of clashing of never like creative ideas or anything. It was just literally the stress of it all of like, I'm much more trusting with like, oh, that'll fall into place. We need those pigeons. There'll be pigeons there. We see them every day, whereas he'd be a little more stressed about that. And rightfully so, because he had lost 30 pounds for the role and was starving himself. And, I'm sure
that doesn't help with
exactly. I think he was just extra on edge for that. But what's funny is for the second movie, it almost seemed like it was the polar opposite. Like we didn't even have to talk in a good way. Like we knew our shorthand was just like that. I could be like, oh, the thing, anybody, oh yeah. That's all we'd say. And it wouldn't even make sense to anyone else. But it's almost like he was just calm the whole time and very like in the zone of his character, trusted, he could be the writer when he needed to be the writer, if we needed to step over and be like, hey, let's adjust this scene or whatever. But then most of the time he was just in character, didn't even need to talk much because we had full trust. Animals had turned out so well, with what we had, that I think he was just like, let's just do it. Hand it off. And it was cool. It was cool to see that change in the process.
Yeah, well, I watched both of those as you saw, but back to back, and there's a definite size difference in him from each film.
Yes,
definitely. I'm like, oh man, this dude bulked up,
transformed.
He was probably just eating.
Yeah, right. Much easier than not eating. I think that made it easier for him to play that character in regard to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he wants to transform, and it's cool that he writes these roles that he thinks he can step into and lets me kind of sculpt it from there. But they're heavy movie. We call them spiritual sequels. Like we want to do a third one eventually, the Cutlass. It's a Cutlass trilogy, the Cutlass.
Okay.
We're like, we got to do a third one that has that same car, a similar car.
Yeah.
Whatever that will be, we don't know yet, but definitely those are definitely like spiritual sequels to each other.
Yeah, and I know I wrote this to you, but Animals, I think is going to be one of those films, not negating Gunfight or Creatures.
Right.
But for some reason, Animals is going to be the one that sticks with me because as many movies as I've seen about addiction, and as much as having experience, not with myself necessarily with addiction, but other people in my life, I thought I had seen pretty much everything. It's like certain genres of film. I don't need to see another Holocaust movie. I don't need another slave film.
Right.
At some point, it just becomes pornographic to keep doing slave and Holocaust films.
Sure.
I think everything's been said.
Sure.
And a lot's been said about addiction, but we're still, as a society, we're still moving towards even remotely understanding and empathizing with addiction in our culture. And it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
Especially since COVID, addiction has gotten far worse.
Skyrocketed, yeah.
Yeah. So I was amazed to see how differently it was handled in this film. It's just really weird because like the time frame that you were here, and probably maybe I don't know David's story necessarily, but maybe even around the same time that he had his issues while he was here. I had a former close friend that was a severe addict, and our relationship ended up going to shit because of it. And it's like, and I have to imagine there's a certain empathy that I have for people because I got my own issues, but
yeah, we all do. Yeah.
I know I'm a step away from being a drug addict or an alcoholic if I let myself be that way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, I have like a lot of tendencies. But it was just amazing to see something different about it and handled differently and even end on a different note. It's rather ambiguous. You're not sure if the one character ends up going where they're supposed to be, where they say they're going or not.
Right.
The thing at the end that happens. I don't want to ruin it because people should check it out. And if you want to check it out and you don't want to pay for it, if you could download Tubi, it's on Tubi right now.
Yep.
And I would say it's $8 on Vudu. Buy it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just the way it ends so ambiguously, you're not sure if both of them are going to stay with each other, if they're going to drag each other down back to where they were again, the whole bit. But it's so graceful how it ends that it even if you don't know, you're still left with enough optimism that maybe something good comes to these people.
Yeah, good. That's your analysis is so spot on with at least how I view it. Of course, it's up to interpretation, but like that's how I saw it. That's how that ambiguous. Like I hope there's like I didn't want you to walk away feel like you just got beat over the head, like watching Requiem for a Dream or something.
Right.
Where you're like, no, there's something hopeful here. There's that glimmer of hope if you can.
It could happen. It could because a lot of people do come out of it.
Yeah, you can if you get the right people around you and the right, like I think. Well, whatever. We don't have to. I don't want to ruin it either, I guess. But it's
too special of a film to delve into. I would just like in all creatures. I wouldn't. The reveal in All Creatures is like, holy shit.
That's awesome.
And it's not it doesn't hit you over the head either with that. Well,
yeah.
That's what I'm considering.
Yeah, right.
Well, I didn't even mean to do this. Everybody that's seen the film knows that.
What we're talking about.
The joke. But yeah, Animals is just the way you shot Chicago in a different way than I've ever seen Chicago. Because, okay, so I say this sometimes. You know that I told you that I'm writing something, and I'm writing something set in Chicago. And my intention is, if it ever got filmed, which who knows,
Right. Be hopeful.
I would not want to go to the usual places. I wouldn't want to see I wouldn't even, hand to God, I wouldn't even have a Chicago Cubs logo in the film if I could,
avoid it.
Avoid it. Yeah. Number one, because I hate the Cubs, but number two, because it's a cliche, showing Wrigley, showing the Sears Tower, and it's still the Sears Tower to me. I'm that old.
I agree. I'll call it that too.
All that stuff. It's like, but you manage to show, especially you show an area, you go into the South Side a lot, where I do Uber driving, and I drive from the South suburbs into Chicago a lot, and I'm in the South Side all the time. I grew up right at the tail end of the South Side of Chicago in Blue Island, which is like the for the closest suburb to Chicago, technically. Like if you cross the border, you're in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so I know a lot of the areas that you filmed in, and it was just having that different perspective for once in a film. The Chi on Showtime does that a bit too. They interesting location shooting as well. But it was just cool. And I didn't even get to say this before. I'm sorry if I'm just gushing. The scene with the cops is unlike any scene with police I have ever seen in my life.
That's awesome. I love that.
It's like, it's so matter of fact. It's both, you see both the good and the bad instantly in those two cops.
Sure. Absolutely. I think
they're trying to do their job,
right?
They're really fucking pissed off at people.
That's exactly it. And that was like some of the beauty of the naturalism in the script that Dave had experienced. And that scene, that's why I wanted it just to feel matter of fact, as if the camera operator doesn't even know what to film. And they're just like, it's all full gray area where you see both sides. You're just like, gosh, this is a mess, it's not the black and white. And that's what I wanted for the whole movie. It's not like this. The world is not black and white, like they're not good or bad. It's just like they're trying to figure out the situation. Right. And that's what I loved about it and what I wanted it to feel like, just so naturalistic. And so I'm glad you like that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes. Yeah.
And we could get into a whole tangent about that, but and let me just say that the performance by Karen Gillan, where I was from Guardians of the Galaxy, I guess mostly. Yeah. I remember seeing her in Doctor Who early on and thinking this woman is a star.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know why. And then like she became like just huge.
Yeah, Jumanji and
Gunpowder Milkshake. Yeah, his ass.
Yep.
Which is fun. But her performance in that was so delicate, and I have to imagine that was it was so different than David's character. And I'm sure there was a real balancing act. How difficult was it for her? Do you remember balancing exactly, the character from not being too, because she's a rather slow person, in other ways, but she's also really with it in some other ways. She's not completely, it's like it's such a delicate balance. How do you remember that all going?
I remember. I mean, it was a challenge, but at the same time, she is so professional, and I mean, she's Scottish in real life. So it's funny because she, has a thick accent, is very wacky. She's like such a wacky person, fun, playful on set, but still like the second we get ready into the mode, she just switches on a dime. And she kind of brought on that, what we had talked about, what I talked about with her and what she wanted to bring to it was that innocent, childlike, just in her eyes, all set in her eyes with like the characteristics of a kid who's, just trying to figure out the world in real time, but not quite processing it fast enough as as what her age is, So I remember the process was, a lot of it we found in the editing because we did play around, she tried a lot of things and a lot of it I found was all of our takes that she nailed were the ones that were the most the subtle kind of understated moments of where she just said everything with her eyes and with her mouth and her little actions. I remember it wasn't difficult. Like, I mean, it was a challenge, but like once we fell into the rhythm, it just was naturally every scene kind of her dynamic with Dave, who's the, more aggressive one, fell into place pretty quick because they could read each other so well. And it was just how far to push it. And I think in the editing room, especially, we found like, taking out a lot of lines and letting her face do the speaking and stuff kind of really worked well. But it was fun. I know that. Like, she was awesome to work with. Total professional.
Yeah, it's very. And I remember, the terrible part for me is I remember when Creatures came out and I'd seen something about it somewhere. I'm like, boy, that really sounds interesting. And I tell you, for whatever reason, it fell through the cracks for me. And I love the fact that you could discover anything at this point in history. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I discovered, jazz music from the 40s that I never knew existed.
Awesome. Yep.
But I also feel weird. It's like I really should have been on that film sooner.
Right.
It's like,
it's one of those things that, things get lost in the cracks, and we have so much content now that you can barely keep up with like the big stuff, let alone, like now that we're having Star Wars shows and like, Marvel shows, and it's like there's so much content, and it's like movies like that can just, and that's what I do love, that we live in a world, as much as it's overwhelming, it's so cool that we can dig up something, or if you get interested in your niche thing. And that's what's so cool about all three of these movies is like, and how I look at being an auteur or something. It's like, I used to be so precious about all the movies have to be so very tonally, all my tropes, all my things, and all my techniques, and what makes me who I am have to be follow this very specific pattern. But now I'm like, no, it's all relative to whatever I
thank you.
whatever I want to make, and what I'm feeling and what I'm doing, and someone's gonna find it, whether it's later or in the moment. Like, you track it down, and you might be like, what is this? I'm into these things now. I'm gonna check this movie out. And that's what is helpful, I think, about hopefully the longevity of certain, our movies, is that, especially if my career can keep progressing and I make bigger movies, which I want to do, I hope people will look back and be like, well, what is All Creatures? What is Animals? What is Gunfight? What are these things?
Right.
So I know, I love that too. Like, we can go track down anything and everything.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing that, I grew up in the age of the video revolution. So like, I was able to track down things. My first thing about learning about films was cable. And then we finally got a VHS, VCR in the house. I remember my mom paying something like $600 for a damn VCR back then.
Right, they were it was crazy expensive, right?
I'm like, and for us, we didn't have a lot of money, so that was a big investment.
Right.
And eventually we got a Laserdisc player, which by that point I was a nutso film, person. So
you were all in,
Yeah, I was all in. So then, then everything changed to DVDs and then stream. It's like, it's nuts. But it's like almost everything is within your reach now. It's very rare to not be able to find something.
Absolutely. It's true.
You can literally go back and say, okay, well, I like Al Pacino. I haven't seen, let's say, Revolution, which, let's be honest, not many people have seen Al Pacino on Revolution.
Yeah.
It was a historic bomb. Probably not a good movie. I still actually haven't seen Revolution.
I've not seen Revolution, no.
No, but it's like, but if you ever say, hey, like I said one day, I haven't seen Cruising, Al Pacino, William Friedkin.
Yeah.
I checked it out, and it's wild. It's a wild fucking. I ended up buying the special edition Blu-ray.
That's amazing.
It's a wild fucking. It's like hardcore, the hardcore gay New York in the late 70s. It's like, no way was that movie going to be successful.
Right. Yeah. It's such a
1980.
Exactly. It's such a specific audience or whatever, especially in a specific time.
Yeah. And it's just it's just great that you're able to do that. And I really want people to check out Die in a Gunfight. I really want them to go start at Animals and go to All Creatures Here Below, and then go to Die, or however, just watch them all.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah.
And I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do want to find out, is there anything you're kind of working on right now?
Yeah. So I can't say too much about it, but I luckily, what you hope for every movie is, one, whether people love it or hate it, that you can keep getting work. And some people reached out to me and they had a script for me, and I'll say it's in the bigger budget range, kind of the 10 million range that I'd hoped Gunfight would be. So it's I learned a lot on Gunfight, and now it's like, okay, maybe this is the reason why, whatever this new movie is, which I can say that it's kind of I'll say it's like a crime thriller with a dash of sci-fi. So
interesting.
It's a totally new avenue for me, but this is really also another, again, I want to make anything and everything. So I feel like it's a little selfish, but it's a definitely return to a darker, my darker side again, which I naturally will always want to do. But what I love about it is that it does have some commercial appeal in the sense of like those crime, thriller, like a thriller that kind of has those futuristic elements, like I don't know if you saw Ex Machina or
Yeah.
A little bit of Looper in there, a little bit of, these movies that are, you see why they're stepping stones to someone making a Star Wars movie or whatever. So that's kind of what I was looking for, but I wanted it to be sophisticated and kind of Fincher-esque. So that's generally, I know I'm kind of beating around the bush.
You're not there yet. It's not all.
It's coming together.
Are you signed on it, or are you working towards signing on?
I actually am signed on it. So I can't say that. But it's been luckily the last kind of few months of figuring that, I've kind of been luckily getting Gunfight out there while I've been secretly doing that. And that's what I mean by it felt good to, that Lionsgate was excited about picking up Dying in Gunfight and distributing it. It got the ball rolling on all the other conversations that I was having and trying to
very good
for new movies. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think Gunfight definitely gives, backed up by Creatures and Animals, gives you, it's more of a selling card, I think. So
sure.
I'm excited. I'm very excited for you. And I'm obviously excited to see what the hell this movie is.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I can't wait to find out more about it. But all right, well, let me, as we talked about before, let me sign off with you. And everybody's got to, just if you have Vudu, go to Vudu, buy Animals. It's like $8. Creatures is 10. Gunfight is 10. $28. You get 3 awesome films.
Thank you.
Maybe don't watch all 3 back to back, essentially like I did. You might not have the intestinal fortitude to watch Animals and Creatures back to back.
Right.
But I'm weird. But they're worth you checking out and worth you purchasing, and anything to give Collin's stock a little bit of a rise, that would be great.
Thank you.
Collin, thank you very much again for taking the time. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here, and good luck with everything you're doing.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Care. You too.
And then cut. Okay.
Sweet.
So again, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, man, I love these conversations, so I love it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I hesitate to do this because I'm not normally this person, so I'm just gonna say it.
It's fair. Go for it.
If there's a way, because I'll be honest, it's an uphill battle trying to get people.
Yeah,
quite honestly, and the weird thing is, who Peter Siegel is, the director of Naked Gun 33.
Yeah.
He's got this show called Heels coming out on Stars about the wrestling environment, right? So I wrote to his people, and he got back to me directly, which blew my mind. It's like this guy made out movies with Adam Sandler and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's always weird how these things, I have friends in the business, but it's still like pulling teeth to get people.
Yep, 100%.
I was just wondering if you could just do me the smallest favor.
Of course.
If there's any way that once this is going to post on Friday, you could send David an email with it and just say, look, hey, I talked to this guy. If you thought it went well,
yep.
However, and you just say, look, this guy says he reached out to your people about talking about Suicide Squad and Dune. You want to look into it, but I'm not asking for anything more than just passing on the interview and I'm interested in talking to him.
Yeah.
I hate to be, I don't want to come off as that guy that's like already asking for a favor.
No worry. I'm like,
yeah, if you just want to pass it on.
Yeah.
And whatever happens,
Yep. I would be happy to.
Appreciate it.
I would be happy to. And like I said, seriously, Dave is one of my best friends, and he is crazy busy with the release of this year's so weirdly giant for him, which is awesome.
Right. It wasn't supposed to be this way. It wasn't supposed to be quite this way.
Exactly. It's all kind of piled together, which is great. But he's in Germany right now.
I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, doing it's like a Dracula type movie. He's very quiet about it. I don't know any details, but it sounds awesome.
Well, like I said, look, even if just so he has the interview, just knows that I appreciate his work.
Absolutely.
And if he wants to reach out, or if he wants to check in with his people, I'm not expecting anything. I gotta be honest. asking someone to, like, I asked my director buddy who I told you about.
Yeah.
Who had the problem. I asked, hey, dude, if you have any pull with anybody, like he and I have known each other for almost 5 years now. If there's a way you could, and I heard like nothing back from him. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to bother him about that again.
Right.
You know, it's it's so hard to put yourself out there to ask somebody.
Yeah,
want to be that asshole asking for shit.
Totally. But at the same time, it's like, that's the weird, tricky part. I think you're doing it right though. That's how I do it. Like you do it, you put yourself out there at least once and see what happens. And because it's like, you never know what's going to happen. Like it's a lot of times it might work out. And the second, you know, then it's kind of like, all right, well, I'll let it simmer for a while because
I'm not pushy that way. I can't.
Same. Me either.
Maybe it's our Midwestern things.
Probably it's ingrained.
Like, no, we don't really want to be a bother. If we were from New York or LA, we'd be constantly bothering.
Yes, but I think that's why I think it'll ultimately will play to our favor in that regard.
Yeah.
But Dave's a Midwest dude too. He's from Kansas City originally, so like, and he's a Chicago guy, so like. I definitely will send everything to him and I'll be like, hey, dude, you got to do this, whatever. And I'll see, I'm sure he'll reach out or I'll try to connect you guys.
However it works. And I'll check in with you to see where things are at.
Cool.
I'm dying to find out what the hell
Yeah. I swear. Yeah. And for real, don't be a stranger. Like if check in with me whenever. If and when, I hope there's like a press release, I don't know when these things.
You'll figure it out. And if you think about it, when you actually can announce something, if it doesn't get picked up everywhere, just let me know about it.
Will do. I will for sure.
All right, man.
Sure.
All right. Well, I'll be in touch. I'll send you the link when it's up on Friday.
Great.
And I really appreciate you taking the time. And it's a real thrill because I'm really happy that I got to see the other two films before talking to you too.
Me too. Honestly, I love how it worked out. I'm glad we could pause for a second. You could watch them, and I think it made more for a conversation and hopefully for future conversations. Now we can
definitely
keep exploring everything that's been being worked on. So I appreciate it. I really do.
No, thank you too. All right. Well, I won't take any more of your time. You have a good rest of your day, dude.
You too. Yeah.
Right, take care. All right. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.